Hello there, my name is Stephanie Odia and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this episode of the Bridge 360 Show. The Bridge 360 Show is a program which aims to provide useful information that would bridge the communication gap between the public and government in providing very critical infrastructure and economic development through its ministries, departments and agencies. Now, we'll be deliberating about government's developmental strides, and our discussions will be hitting major points, not patronizing, of course, but rather appraise government's efforts in critical infrastructural deliverables. And our focus today is how vandalism of power infrastructure is impacting on electricity transmission in Nigeria. More details when we come back from this short break. Do stay tuned. There is no doubt that the incidents of theft and equipment vandalism are really costing the nation lots of resources. And besides, the immediate consequence of this criminality is that life is made more difficult for law-abiding citizens who are thrown into darkness due to these activities of vandals on power transmission infrastructures. Now, the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, has deplored the rising cases of attacks on power infrastructure nationwide, which has cost the agency a lot of resources to replace and to restore vandalized sections of power lines with resources that could have been better invested in further expanding the transmission network for the benefit of Nigerians. The company has continued to appeal for more vigilance and support from security agencies, local vigilante groups, and host communities, as well as state governments, to protect power installations and tackle the menace vandalism. Besides, there is grave danger inherent in vandalism of power installations, as it could result in loss of lives by electrocution, amongst others. TCN regions all over the country have, within the last 1 year, experienced several attacks on power installation that resulted to tripping off the transmission lines affecting the grid. Now, in the Abuja sub-region, for instance, tripping off 330 kV and 132 kV transmission lines were traced to the activities of vandals who short-circuit transmission lines and cut away aluminium conductors. However, in 2019, between the months of October to December alone, 5 major acts of vandalism were recorded on the 330 kV and 132 kV transmission lines. Now, let's go back a bit in time to recount some transmission vandalism issues. On 31st October 2019, the 330 kV Shiroro Katampe circuit, R4B, Shiroro Gwagwalada circuit, R5G, and Lokoja Gwagwalada circuit, L and G, and L7G tripped, leading to loss of power supply in Abuja. The TCN maintenance crew later discovered that the line was vandalized and the vandals short-circuited the red-faced 330 kV Shiroro Katampe line around Diko in Niger State and carted away 600 meters of aluminium conductors between towers T231 and T233 respectively. And on the 15th of November 2019, all the 330 kV circuits within Abuja tripped again. And this was traced to the activities of vandals on the 330 kV Shiroro Gwagwalada circuit, R5G, between tower T245 and T246 at Babantunga settlements behind Royal Ceramics Factory along the Kaduna Road, and also 500 meters of aluminium conductors was reported stolen. On 30th November 2019, again, Abuja lost supply from the grid when vandals struck on the 330 kV Lokoja Gwagwalada circuit, L7G, between T330 to T332. The Kubwa-Suleja 132 kV line tripped on distance relay protection red-faced on 22nd December 2019, and the sub-region line's crew on inspection discovered that the line was short-circuited at T16, while the aluminum conductor between T16 to T18 was stolen. And 6 days later, on the 26th of December 2019, the 33 kV Shiroro Gwagwalada circuit R5G tripped on red-faced earth distance protection relay indication. Investigations also revealed that the conductor had been vandalized between towers T231 and T233. And in 2020, in Abuja sub-region, tripping had equally been traced to the activities of vandals. On the 4th June 2020, the 330 kV Gwagwalada Katampe line R5G tripped on this port with OC during clear weather and was restored on 9th June 2020. The region recorded tripping off of the same line. On 17th and 19th June 2020, the same line again recorded tripping at the Gwagwalada end, which was restored. All the stripping were connected with the activities of vandals. A more recent attempt on Gwagwalada-Kukwaba transmission line was averted by residents of the area. A total of 236 km of this section of transmission line was vandalized last year, and the following transmission lines were affected. We have the Shiroro Katampe double circuit 330 kV transmission line, Shiroro Gwagwalada T-off DC line, Ajaokuta Gwagwalada DC 330 kV transmission line. If you notice, the instances of vandalism so far have been in the northern parts of the country. Now, make no mistake, there are also similar issues in the south, east, and the west. You can imagine the enormity of destruction and loss of equipment. Now, we spoke to the Assistant General Manager Transmission Abuja, Region 1, and this is what he has to say.
In Abuja sub-region comprises of 8 substations, which we maintain and operate. When we say vandalization is when you have unauthorized people going into either cutting away or destroy properties we use or materials we use in transmission power from generation station to the transmission station down to the distribution station. That is what we call vandalization. And what we basically what it is, I mean, people, these criminals used to vandalize is either the tower members and the conductor, but mostly they are after the tower members, conductors, which we use in transmitting power. Of recent, 2019, 2020, here in Abuja sub-region, we had it very, very nasty, in the sense that virtually every month, in 2019 specifically, virtually every month, we used to have at least one incident of vandalization of transmission line conductor, specifically. The vandals, they used to cut away at times 2 to 3 spans of conductor. That is 350 mm conductor, 2 span, which is roughly about 1,000 meters. They cut it away, and in so doing, there's going to be disruption of power supply between the generation station to the transmitting station, where it now steps it down to distribution, then to the end user. And in so doing, you discover that a lot of revenue is being lost at the 3 chain links of electricity supply. That is one is transmission, this generation, transmission, and distribution. And you discover that when you don't have adequate power to be transmitted the downstream there, a lot of activities, economic activities is being affected. Mostly is for economic sabotage. It is economic sabotage because when they do this thing, when they caught this conductor, they sell it out to people that maybe use it for all these local ports. The real aluminium, we have these modern aluminium windows and doors. They use them in melting them. But as I rightly said, in 2019, 2020, we had it very, very rough. But of late, everybody's involved. That means the security agents, all the security agencies are involved in seeing how we tackle this menace. And even we too on our own parts, and we engage the services of the locals around where our lines pass to put an eye. The security agencies are the DSS, the police, the civil defense, even the army. They are involved in seeing that this thing is being curtailed because it is a national disgrace. As I said, even the other time, we're even thinking, even these are bandits of a thing. They can perpetrate, come in and do all these things. It is part of national security too. There used to be a program being sponsored by TCN. Where if you watch it, it's on the national TV. They go around to tell people the effect of vandalization, that people should desist. But now, we keep an eye on our line. We have both the vigilante, the security personnel, and even the people living around that area. Because when you tell them that this is the effect, how it's going to affect everybody. Everybody wants to see light, everybody wants to use light for one thing or another. If you allow just a few to deny us using this facility, so everybody's on the watch out.
It is important to note that vandalism of power equipment obstructs power supply and leads to loss of revenue generation to both TCN and others in the value chain, and invariably you and I, the end users of electricity. Now, TCN has also collaborated with the security agencies and local government councils to check this incessant act of vandalism. There are involvement of community vigilante groups and security agencies to carry out daily surveillance of the facilities is critical to enable TCN concentrate on upgrading the national grid. It is, however, unfortunate that as the nation remains resolute with the quest for improved and steady power supply, there are unpatriotic individuals hell-bent on sabotaging government efforts and throwing their fellow citizens into hardship through economic sabotage.
The major causes of this kind of vandalism are majorly, one, illiteracy. People don't even understand the effect of this, and they don't even understand what could affect them even in the process of the vandalism, because we have seen a lot of cases whereby a vandal will be coming to vandalize a power line, and unfortunately he'll be electrocuted, and it becomes a fatal accident. He just died as a result of that. He might have not known this effect. If he had known, he wouldn't have gone there to kill himself. So illiteracy is one major factor resulting into vandalism. And secondly, the participation and activities of unauthorized and unqualified personnel in the operation of the power system. Some of these unauthorized are not actually members, they are not staff of the utilities. Sometimes we term them NEPA 2. And you know, even from the term NEPA 2, it means there is NEPA 1. Maybe NEPA 1 are the authorized employees, while NEPA 2 are the unauthorized ones. They are actually looking for how to survive. So they go into they are initially electricians, they do house wiring, domestic wiring, commercial, industrial wiring, or installations, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, they can go to an extent of going into higher levels, and that will result into vandalism. They can even claim that, look, even if your fuse fails in your feeder pillar in a distribution substation, I can replace it for you. So they will start replacing. Sometimes they will only be using sticks. They will be using pliers. And these are not the right tools to use in replacing fuses. So they end up vandalizing the substation and causing unnecessary outages and interruptions. I think these are some of the few causes of vandalism in my own understanding. Now, when vandalism happens, it results into a lot of effects, negative impacts, because you cannot cite a single positive impact of vandalism. All the impacts are negative. Now, for example, you have huge economic loss. And there are some businesses that must have collapsed as a result of this. That is equally a huge economic loss. So the customers had economic loss, the utility had economic loss, and that will ultimately affect the entire economy of the country. So ultimately, we could say the economy of the country was equally affected. There are other serious socio-economic effects and even religious effects, because even when you go to churches and mosques and you want to pray, you may need speakers. They must be connected to power sources, and this power source is not there, meaning that the effectiveness of what you are doing in the prayers and the supplications are no longer there. And security is equally affected. And another thing is the productivity of the entire populace is going to be less, because there are some businesses that are usually tied to the power. People who maybe sell water and drinks, they need to cool them off. They need power supply. It is no longer there. The productivity they will provide in that business is going to be too low. And you equally have people who are welders, whom their business is solely on that. It means they can no longer work. And welders actually have effect in almost every sphere of life. If you are conducting a building in construction industry, you need welders. Even if you are constructing towers, even in the power sector itself, you need welders. If you are constructing cranes, you need welders. So welders are every part of life. And if that supply is no longer there, it means they cannot operate. So the productivity becomes very low. And ultimately, it will affect that thing we have said, huge economic loss. And equally, by this, it means some industrial activities are going to be jeopardized, because some industries cannot even operate. Supply is their sole thing they actually rely on to operate, and if the supply is no longer there, it means they cannot operate. Some of them do have standby generators, yes, of course, and some other power sources, but if it happens that as a result of vandalism like that of towers that has effect for months, I don't think they can be able to handle these kind of productions with their standby generators for all this duration. And even if they could, the productivity is going to be affected. It's going to be lower compared to when they have adequate source of supply from the grid. So these are part of the challenges. And if this happens, what this means is that it will result into higher cost of commodities. Because when you are operating from the grid power supply, your production cost is going to be low. But when you are using generators, it could be diesel, it could be gas, whatever it could be, the cost of that power is going to be higher. And you want to recoup it from what you are producing. So the price of what you are producing is going to be higher because the cost of the production has increased. And that equally has serious socio-economic effects on the community. Now, these are part of the effects you find when there is any vandalism. Now, let's consider in a society, like in a small community where you have one simple distribution substation, and that substation was vandalized. Before the utility could be able to restore that transformer, they need to spend millions. And do they have that millions readily available? And another consideration they will look at is what is the rate of the payment of the customers within that area again. It's too much. Now, these are part of the effects of vandalism. But when we look at your question relating to how do we avert this situation, I think at my level I may not necessarily be able to say we need to do this and this to avert this, but basically I can give my opinion based on my ideas and experiences. One of the most vital things we need to do to avert vandalism is we need to educate our youth. When people are educated, you eliminate the illiteracy, and illiteracy is one of the causes of vandalism. So in essence, what I mean is, when you consider a research is conducted and all causes of vandalism are well identified, then you need to bring about solutions to these causes, and that is what will avert vandalism. And some studies have actually shown illiteracy is one of the major causes. So what it means is that you need to educate the public. And this public education does not necessarily imply only having primary, secondary, or tertiary education, but even awareness, the understanding on the concept or even the power itself, how important it is to the community or to the society or to the nation at large. How could you impact it positively to your community? How do you have help in averting these kind of instances? They will go a long way. So we need public reorientation and awareness in addition to what we may term as formal education. Whether we want to do it formally or informally, it doesn't matter, but we need to bring this awareness and the public reorientation. And I believe you as media practitioners will play a very vital role in this regard. You need to play a very vital role. And then we equally need to provide improved security measures on power equipment. Surveillance is a necessity. But the utilities themselves alone, or TCN or the discos, may not be able to do this alone. And the communities will have to equally help by reporting any illegal issue noticed on the power equipment or power utilities and installations, report them to the right security personnel or to the nearest utility office they could be able to report. Additionally, they should never allow people who are unauthorized and people who are unqualified to be attending to their installation simply because they want to be on supply every time. They need to understand the situation, they understand the impact and effects of these kind of practices. Government intervention may equally be required to avert this vandalism, and where they may need to intervene is actually providing restriction of power equipment market. You can't just allow everybody to go into business of power equipment anyhow he wants. If there may be a process of licensing people who can go into power equipment marketing. If you are licensed, it means you have to be careful of what you will be buying and what you will not be buying. You have to ascertain from what source you are buying. Because sometimes if that is not restricted, it means once a vandal could be able to vandalize any equipment, he can sell it anytime, anywhere. And that is an encouragement for him. But if he can vandalize, get the equipment, but even to sell it becomes so difficult for him, I don't think next time he'll be able to do that. So this restriction is supposed to be provided. Community contributions to surveillance is a very good factor, even if it means employing what we may refer to as surveillance cameras. They will actually help, because that will enable us to have a record of whoever is moving around and vandalizing this kind of equipment, even though this is not cost effective per se, because you have to employ some cost before you can be able to install this kind of gadgets. But yet, if you consider the resultant effect of what they will bring and what they will avert from the cost implication you will incur if this vandalism occurs, I don't think they will be rated as costly. They will be considered as cost effective per se. So these are some of the issues we need to consider. Therefore, education is a necessity, civic consciousness, social responsibility, inculcation of good values will actually help in averting vandalism. And we need to put heads together. This shouldn't be the responsibility of only the government, because even the utilities will need to take up some social responsibilities that will help the community to understand that, yeah, the utilities are really concerned of us, and therefore we equally need to give our quota in protecting these installations. After all, they are serving us, even though they are for business of the utilities, but they actually serve the community. I think if you could be able to do that, and many more that may be found, they could be very well. Finally, I want to remind us on the fact that insurgents vandalized towers and they cut power supply to Maiduguri and its environs. So you can see how huge it could be. And I believe, I don't have any proof anyway, but I believe from the reports, you notice that about 70 to 80% of part of Borno State were affected by this vandalism. Because a tower is responsible of providing or wheeling power to different regions and zones, not just to localities. So I think it is very huge and something must be done. But all the same, I think we need to commend the effort of the TCN for restoring the towers, despite the fact that they were vandalized at several times in the same location.
TCN is also not resting on its oars in finding solution to the vandalism menace as it continues to collaborate with security agencies to fish out these miscreants and bring them to book. On our own as citizens of this great country, do we sit back, fold our hands and do nothing? My answer to that question is no. Because in the end, if we all mind our own business and let the vandals have a field day at destroying our collective national assets, we would have contributed to the reduction of bulk electricity supply to distribution companies nationwide. Now, this simply means that our action counts in the urgent fight to protect transmission infrastructure nationwide. Wherever you notice strange loitering or activity by or around any transmission tower nationwide, please call the attention of any TCN office closest to you. It is a fact that if we all can assist in protecting TCN's installations, monies that would have been used to repair vandalized equipment would be channeled into further expanding the nation's grid for our collective benefits. And this is where we draw the curtain on today's edition of the Bridge 360 show. To make it a date with us on this channel, same time next week, or please follow us on social media handle as seen on your screen. We have also made this package in other languages such as Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba for your viewing pleasure. My name is Stephanie Odia, and bye for now.